This is Just in Time, here with Pirate News. Time travelling to the year 2018 to the city, Memphis, on the river, the Mississippi. We will be interviewing artists of many different kinds who practice many different arts. Welcome to Pirate News. First, we have Fluffy Lenore interviewing Jonathan Cassie.
Hello, this is Fluffy Lenore here with Jonathan Kirksey, who is an accomplished composer.
Hey.
Jonathan, it's good to have you here today.
Thanks.
So we are here to talk about the creative process and the way that you approach the different ways you make music.
Mm-hmm.
I guess first off, what are the different ways you do make music? I know you make it, making scores for movies, but you also have some other projects you've worked on, right?
I lately, in the last couple of years, has been more film scoring, mostly film scoring that I've been doing, and performing as well with the Memphis Symphony and Blue Shift Ensemble, which is a contemporary classical music chamber ensemble, and doing this Mellotron project with a friend of mine where we write original music for Mellotrons, which is kind of a somewhat obscure instrument from the 60s, keyboard instrument that essentially an analog sampler, and it plays back whatever is recorded onto a piece of analog tape that starts playing when you press down a key.
So how do you make a song with that? Is it improvisation, or is it you have an idea ahead of time of how you can create this? Because you've done it with multiple people.
With the
right?
Mellotron?
Yeah, with the Mellotrons. Yeah, specifically. Yeah.
Sometimes we'll bring in ideas that we came up with on our own ahead of time, and sometimes I'll bring in ideas that I originally had thought maybe would be played on different instruments, but could work well on the Mellotron. And but most of it was, a good bit of it was created just improvising with the other players. So it was a mix of both. Mm-hmm. Some of it was written ahead of time, and some of it was improvised and then kind of crafted into a song. Okay. So sometimes the initial idea can come from improvisation, but then you want to craft it a little bit maybe, and put a little bit more intention into it, even if the initial idea came out of just an improvisation.
Okay. Yeah. What is your method then in approaching a movie score?
Film scoring, personally, I tend to be inspired by visual images with film. So I like to see the film. I like to be able to look at it, and it's one of the first steps usually what does the tone of this film need to be? That's the hardest thing to nail down with a film is what is the exact tone of this specific scene or of this film, or what does it need to sound like to support what's happening in the film, to support the action or to support the emotional content of the film.
So do you have free reign with that, or are you sometimes given direction from the director or from the producers?
There's almost always a good bit of direction from the director of the film. Sometimes producers, usually the director. It's your job as a composer is to help the director achieve their vision for the film.
Right.
It's not what my vision of the film is. It's
right.
the director's vision that's important, and so I'm helping them achieve their vision. So of course I need a lot of input from the director.
It's collaboration.
It's definitely a collaboration, and
right.
they might not know a lot about music, or they might not know how to tell me specific things to do musically, but they can at least guide me emotionally, generally speaking, or point me in the right direction, saying, well, there's this other piece of music that I think, something like this would work well here, and they can sort of give me a sense of what they're hearing.
Yeah.
In their mind that way.
So do your emotions then play a part in finding these emotional parts of it, or are you just using what they tell you to? Do you need to, I guess, compose a piece, do you need to draw upon your own emotions?
I always do, for sure.
Yeah.
I always drawing on on my own emotional reaction to the film, or at least relating some way to the characters maybe and what they're going through, and the emotional content of music is really important to me personally. That's kind of why I fell in love with music, is the strong emotional reactions that it evoked in me.
So seeing this collaboration of a writer, the actors, the director, and yourself into it, do you feel like a connection to all these people when you work together? Because you're not always on the set. Yeah. You're not there with them most of the time. Never.
Never.
I mean, maybe your first movie or something. You hung out with them
not even that.
Not even that. Okay.
I've never been on a set of anything that was being shot that I ended up scoring.
Okay.
That's never happened. Yep.
But do you still feel like you're collaborating? Do you still feel the energy from them?
Absolutely. It's sometimes there have been films I scored, and I spent months watching this film over and over again and scoring it. And I got to feel like I kind of knew the actors, but I had never actually met them in person before.
Yeah.
And when I met them in person, I've been looking at their face for months on my computer, and I felt like I knew them, and I think they thought it was a little bit weird, because they never met me before.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely end up developing a connection, and certainly with a director and sometimes producers, you end up working a lot with them and talking a lot with them about the film. And yeah, I definitely feel, and editors as well, I should say, especially in documentary film.
Okay.
Because the editor's role in documentaries is so incredibly important. I mean, it's important in any kind of film, but
they're going to do a lot of chopping out, because you take tons of footage, right?
Exactly. In documentaries, they have a sea of footage to wade through, usually for a documentary. Right. And it's about whittling it down, and so much of the story is told in the editing of the documentary. That's another sort of important collaboration when you're working on a documentary, is usually interaction with editors as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times you'll have input from multiple places. You might have input from editors, a director, and a producer, and they might not all necessarily be telling you the same things. So that's another thing that can be a little bit tricky. But the director always has the final word, though. So. Okay.
I guess my next question is, so how do you prepare to make your art, to make the music? What do you do before you sit down at your computer station?
Preparing for it. If I'm scoring a film, it's usually a matter of like watching a scene a number of times, and kind of using that to sort of get myself into the right headspace. So if I'm working on a particular scene, I might just watch that scene over and over again. Kind of tune into what exactly does this scene need, and some musical ideas might start to come to me So it's usually kind of, it's usually immersing myself in the film, and like I said, I usually get inspired by visual images a lot, so it helps me to just watch.
How do you know when you're finished with the project?
When the director producer tells you you're finished.
So it's a time thing a lot of the time, or they're
a lot of times they'll have a strict deadline. If they have a premiere that's set, or a film festival where it's going to premiere and that date is set in stone. Often there would be some deadline like that. Sometimes it's a little more flexible, and in that case, you have to keep working on it until the director's happy with it.
Yeah.
Which hopefully won't be too long, but...
So, if you had to give your creative style a odor, what would it be?
Okay, I've never thought about that ever. That never occurred to me.
That is what you're supposed to respond. You're supposed to say, "I've never been asked this."
Never occurred to me.
I've gotten some good ones so far from my other two interviews, but I'd love to know what you think. Either, I mean, it might be different things for your Mellotron and for every movie or whatever it is. But how would you describe it?
That's a good point. I mean, every project tends to have its own kind of flavor, or its own distinct sound. Although I do also have a certain style, I think, that has to come through even when I'm doing different things. I have to compare it to an odor. I mean, I'd like to think that it's a pleasant odor. I think that it is. I think that it is. I think it's maybe kind of. I'm thinking like, violets. Maybe kind of a, not too sweet, but a kind of a flower that's not too sweet, but kind of darker, earthy sense to it.
Okay.
Kind of dark, earthy, but beautiful, complex kind of scent.
Well, if anyone out there can give us what that flower is, we would love to know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I'm not a flower expert. You have all these different kind of things you do. So we only talked about two, but you've done some other things. You've played rock music also.
Yeah, playing some rock bands. I have since I was a teenager. I started playing guitar when I was like 13, and didn't study it formally like I did cello.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always enjoyed playing in bands, and whether it's guitar or cello or whatever. It's a different way of. It's very different from playing classical music, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice change. It's kind of freeing because if I'm playing in a rock band or something, I can literally play whatever I want.
Yeah.
My bandmates might get angry at me, or they might not, or they may like it a lot. But but I can play whatever I want, and if I feel like changing a part at any given moment, I can just do that. So you have all this freedom. Playing in an orchestra, you don't have that kind of freedom. It's great in a different way because you're playing great music, but you have to play what's on the page precisely. You don't get leeway. You don't get your own creative freedom.
So do these different ways you make music, the way you know how to play rock music, you know how to collaborate with these Mellotron keyboards, these synthesizers, you know how to write classical music and play classical music. Is this all together how you can make movies so well? They play a part?
Actually, I think that those different backgrounds help tremendously for me.